Hello, I'm Novarosi, and you join me jumping into Zelnarka Caverns to demonstrate to you a fantastic Terran versus Terran build that I have been formulating myself, and it aims to get you into the mid-game safely without worrying about pressure from your opponent by putting some really early pressure on yourself, which is always a good way to do it. I won't obviously, because I'm not against anyone. I'm just going to be showing you this build on a nice simple map to show it off. So what we're going to be doing is Hellion pressure. But it's not just any sort of Hellion pressure, this is really fast Hellion pressure. Hellion pressure with a little bit of support from a Reaper and some backup with a mine, so we're just going to be constantly putting that pressure on, really forcing it, and making our opponent react in a big way. And we're going to do this without destroying our economy too much, because we're going to be expanding midway through this attack. A follow-up from this isn't actually going to be mech. I like to go for bio, though mech is absolutely possible as well. And I like to go to bio because it provides some anti-air to deal with banshees and medevac drops and things like that, which can punish you, because going Hellions, mines and Reapers early on, that's not too much anti-air. I mean, mines can shoot up, but it's not particularly reliable at all. So what we're going to be doing, as I've already shown you a little bit of it, we're going to go for a 10 depot as fairly standard, but then we're going for a 11 Refinery, which is actually fairly standard in Terran versus Terran as well. Aggressive openings are quite common these days, so especially on the map pool. Hilariously, this map, Zelnarka Caverns, which I've been doing every single one of my tutorial videos on, this is in the map pool as I'm making this video, so that's just amazing. So this build is actually really good on that map as well. Shorter Russia distance are better because your Hellions will arrive nice and fast, and yeah, that's all there is to that. So I'm gonna be using my 15th on my 15th supply, making another depot, because walling off is really effective when you've got things to hide. It shows that you've got things to hide in some ways, but your opponent doesn't see what you're hiding. They have to guess everything. It's just it's not a nice situation for your opponent to be in, which is why I often, I'm doing this in this game, but you don't have to. In this example, I mean, I'm going to be using. Ooh, one sec. Sorry. I had a lot of lag there. I apologise. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So I'm going to be using another depot to fully wall this off without showing either of my buildings. And I've been doing this on a couple of my games. I don't do it every game because getting a depot this early, a third depot this early, does delay your orbital a little bit, so it's not as economic, but never mind. Being a little bit dirty is fine in my books, I do like it. So now if opponent pokes up here, they're not going to see any of my structures, which does completely shut them in, put them in the dark. But they can sort of assume aggression, because if you've gotten a wall off, then you're probably going to be doing something in the now.
Upgrade complete.
So yes, I got those 3 guys on gas very quickly. I got a factory as soon as my barracks was finished, and then a reactor for the swap over here. And then I'm going to be instantly making 2 Hellions and a Reaper. So this is the start of the push. Now a Reaper seems a bit pointless, it doesn't look like it's going to do much damage, but Reapers have a lot of DPS against Marines. You're most likely to be up against Marines, so they're going to be quite helpful. And they also can provide vision for your Hellions, and then can retreat and re-heal that damage that they lost, that life that they lost, while they are providing vision. So they're very helpful. So I'm going to be throwing down that command center now. You want to build that command center between your first 2 and your second 2 Hellions. Coming on in, and then restarting those probes. And I'm adding on a few barracks. Barracks are very important because I want to start stim very much, quite quickly, because I'm going to be going for bio, and I want to start Marines very quickly because I need that anti-air. And here we go, very early push. At 6 minutes, I have 4 Hellions and a Reaper in his base. Players often don't even wall off, so you're going to be doing a hell of a lot of damage. If they have walled off, they've walled off, so that's not even too bad. That's going to cut into their resources a little bit, and you can even attack the wall. Reapers have a good DPS versus buildings compared to Hellions, which hilariously deal more damage versus light units. So you can DPS down the wall and try and get in and deal some damage. That's often happens. You can often win games just by trying to kill this off. And if you don't do any damage, you can just fall back into this sort of formation, put a mine there, spread your units out. If something comes down to try and kill that with a scan, you have all of the splash damage which can annihilate marines, and your opponent's going to have a hard time against that. So that's the opening. And my money's getting high because I was just explaining that thing there. But yeah, that's the opening. 2 barracks, a factory, the expansion. That's fine. After this, you're going to be getting a couple more engineering bays. Well, start off with one, and then another one soon after this is settled in. And Stim's obviously coming in. You're going to have to get a few marines. It's good to swap this over, like this. So that second barracks was to swap over with that factory. So you have a reactors factory and a barracks and a tech lab factory. Barracks. Said it wrong twice. And then with this factory, we're going to want a tech lab to build siege tanks. And soon after that, we're going to be adding on 3 more barracks and a starport once this is settled in and we have a nice big income. So yes, now that I've shown you how this build works, it looks very strong. In my opinion, without even an opponent, it looks really strong, all these units very fast. So I'll show you how it works in an actual game. So here we are, I've teleported you into a game. It's a Terran versus Terran obviously, and it's on Achelon Wastes. It's on Achelon Wastes because this is the community voted dream pool. It isn't a 2-year-old replay, though this game probably would have worked 2 years ago. It's fine. It's a nice build. So I'm against Diamond Baller. Fine, absolutely fine name. He's actually a diamond level player. The fact that he's a diamond level player doesn't matter too much. If we were playing against a player which was lower than diamond level, you don't have to be diamond to execute this build. It's not a particularly hard build to execute. You just make some Hellions and go, deal some damage, and macro best you can while you're doing it. If you're against a player better than diamonds, if you're playing against master or higher, then it might not be a build you can do every single game against every Terran that you meet on ladder, like would be the case for diamond and below. But if you're masters, grandmasters, like they'd be watching the video, this is the sort of build you can actually throw in maybe 1 out of 5 games to throw people off guard, especially if you're playing against the same player over and over again. You're gonna really trick a few bitches, trick a few of those guys. So I'm going for my 11 Refinery, whereas my opponent isn't actually going for 11 Refinery, which is fairly unusual, especially for Diamond League. Players love to do those aggressive openings. So this is a good video to show you, a good example to show you, because you're not always going to be up against the ordinary, and you're not always going to be up against people who keel over and die when they're doing the unordinary. So yeah, he doesn't actually die straight away from air pressure, and we get into a mid-game scenario. So yeah, so I hope you enjoy this example. So he's going for his expansion, very mineral heavy opening, and he's going to be producing lots of barracks early on to produce marines to help him stay alive. 11 refinery, 13 barracks, 15 depot. I've noticed on reviewing this video that I did actually make a mistake in my placement, something you can't really... It's an easy thing to do, and it's something that you should look out for. So I've walled off in this fashion to try and hide my tech. But if you look at his vision, he just saw it. He didn't see the factory, but he's just seen the barracks. And even worse, he saw the add-on. You really want to hide the add-on, because that sort of gives away you're doing Hellions. So yeah, 1 hex back would have been a ideal situation there. But it is going to, in looking on the right side, it is going to be able to show you how to play this off when your opponent has seen what you're doing. Or worded slightly differently, it's going to show you how the build does when your opponent has seen it coming, sort of. So this isn't an ideal situation for him actually, because he would like to have Marauders now, so he's gotten double gas straight away. We're going to be working on Marauders, and he's going to be walling off as soon as possible because he knows that Hellions are going to be coming. Making Marines, even though Hellions are pretty good against Marines, spreading out your Marines in an arc, still very strong against Hellions. Now he's seen the push coming, and you missed, because I didn't show you, the most annoying SCV of all time. That red SCV right there actually weakened 2 of my SCVs down to 5 health. As I tried to get the other SCV back up the ramp, he sniped one of the SCVs. And in addition to that, he saw the reactor, so that was the best SCV scout I've ever seen in my life. That's pretty damn good. So here comes the push from me. My first two Hellions are scouting around, and I see the wall started by my opponent. And now I'm going to be demonstrating to you why this build is so strong. Because everything your opponent has early on, i.e. the SCVs and the Marines, Hellions are very damn good against that. And they're going to be able to focus down this wall. They're going to be able to kill any SCVs trying to finish that wall, and they're going to kill that wall off and get to the mineral line. And now my opponent's only just started Marauder production. And this is good reactions from him, in fact. So I'm going to try and focus down those SCVs. Don't even go near those Marauders because you'll be dealing very little damage to them. Just focus down SCVs where you can. Get another one. Hope you're looking for another one. Oh, I didn't quite. Oh yes, there we go. Just got it. And that did a lot of damage. And this is fairly characteristic of what the busts actually do. 13 kills. That is fairly normal, and it has put me far ahead. 8 to 17. Wow. Wow, that's a massive difference actually. But he does still have this advantage. The only reason he took so much damage is because he's gone for this fast expansion, and that's the very reason that he's going to be able to catch up a little bit, because he's going to be producing 2 SCVs at a time. That mine that I would usually use to contain my opponent in a normal game is going to be used to kill off the old SCV, which is nice. And he's going to be able to force a scan, which is also good. A scan in an SCV, that's definitely worth a mine, because a mine's only 75 minerals, 25 gas. A scan alone is worth roughly 270 minerals, so that's pretty good. And now I can show you the transition out of this. So like I showed you before, here's the barracks, the 2 barracks. So there's a reactive barracks and a tech labbed barracks. The tech lab's going to be getting stim, and they're going to be producing, in a normal game this would be 3 Marines at a time, but because I've seen Marauders out of my opponent, I've produced a few Marauders myself. I didn't really need to do that. Actually, I could have made Marines, but because Marines are pretty good against Marauders. But yeah, I was just being safe here, producing big strong units. If you look at the times, 25 seconds for Marines, 30 seconds for Marauders. From a single barracks, producing Marauders one at a time, they can increase your army value faster than producing Marines one at a time. I hope that made sense, because that was the reason. There's the mine that I put in defensively, and really helpfully be able to kill off a Marine. And he made the mistake of thinking that because I opened Hellions, I'm going to have only Hellions at this point. And he's going to be able to do a little bit of damage, but I'm going to be able to repel that fairly easily. And that's, again, fairly characteristic of the sort of defences you can do after opening of this build, because you can pump out quite a lot of units. You can pump out those mines to help defend, and Marauders and Marines. And after putting on all that pressure with Hellions and that Reaper, your opponent often isn't in a nice situation at this point. If we look at units, I'm a bit ahead of units still, as is probably the case, likely to be the case, but he isn't as far behind as he was. That was, I had twice as many workers as him at that point. So now I'm being nice and safe. I'm adding on a bunker. I'm going to be wanting to add on barracks up to 5. There's my 4th one. Once this is saturated, I'm going to be wanting 5 barracks, a starport producing 2 medevacs at a time, and a factory producing a siege tank at a time. Now what my stim's done, I've been adding on combat shields. I also got a engineering bay, as I demonstrated in the opening video. That's just when you're getting +1. Start on those upgrades nice and early. And again, once this is saturated, the second engineering bay wants to go down, along with an armory, so that you can start on 2 upgrades simultaneously. Get nice, fully upgraded units out of those 5 barracks. And now the advantage of playing Bio is going to be demonstrated here. As soon as we get those medevacs, we're going to be really aggressive and up in our opponent's face. Now we could do this with a mech play, we could get medevacs and be aggressive, but as medevacs are a core part of the Bio army, we're going to have more medevacs to play with and be really, really aggressive. And stim's also a nice thing to have, which Hellbats don't really have. So if you look at our opponent, he's going for a 3rd. He wants to catch up in economy, which is quite a good play, but I'm going to be so aggressive that I really don't want him doing this. Really well positioned siege tank for him, has been able to deflect that attack. And I fly out with the lives of all of my units. Didn't actually lose any units there. Very low health, as you can see. That was actually healed up, so it was even lower than 30 HP before. Definitely one more shot from that tank would have killed quite a few of those off. And as I've seen my opponent was going for a third, I've taken a third myself. But I still want to keep on the aggression, so 2 medevacs at a time still. Why have I cut siege tanks? Guess I don't quite have enough gas yet because I was a bit late adding on these refineries. But yeah, I want to be making siege tanks one at a time at least. And yeah, be as annoying as possible with all of these bio units. Sniped off that extractor, which refinery, which is really nice actually. Probably be breaking down these rocks next, moving into a third. Now that I've taken this natural as I keep reiterating, 5 barracks at least. So that's all 5, and fairly soon after this point I'm going to be adding on a refinery, I keep making this mistake, engineering bay and an armory in these positions, I'm pretty sure. Yes, that's what I did, yes. Might have gotten confused with the video, with the replay I was watching, that would have been embarrassing. So I'm going to be continuously moving in, keep our opponent pinned back. There's just so many advantages of doing this because it distracts your opponent. Your opponent might forget to lift off this expansion and land it in somewhere to start mining, which I think he might be doing right now. It forces your opponent to stop attacking you because he's busy defending. And it makes him cause mistakes out of him like that. He just dropped a few marines for me to kill. So that's a nice bonus. And I'm moving into a third now. So now my second engineering bay is done. I'm going to be making 2 upgrades at a time. Continuous medevac production. Just want to be as aggressive as possible. I always want enough medevacs to drop all of my units on top of my opponent's army. So that's a nice thing to have. I've got a whole 7 medevacs now dropping. Meanwhile, he's dropping with 3. But 7 medevacs often beats 3 medevacs once they're all filled with units. So it doesn't look so good for him. He's going to be doing damage a lot slower than I'm going to be doing damage to him. Though he does have the advantage of having a siege tank here. He does have the advantage of... Oh, he blocked his siege tank from coming out with the add-ons. That has a big disadvantage to him, unfortunately. And I'm sure that's confusing the living fuck out of him why that's happening. And yeah, a lot of damage coming in, a lot of chaos. He's doing the same thing to me, but his army isn't nearly as strong as mine. And that's because, as you can see here, his money's quite high. I've been macroing a lot better than him. I've been adding on those 5 barracks, which are so important once you're on 2 bases. Get those 5 barracks once those two bases are fully saturated, because you need good production to win these games. It's so important in StarCraft. Spending all of your money. It's such a simple thing, but it does win games so often. Just make sure you're spending all your money. And this is really loud, so I might stand over here. It's a bit more peaceful over here. They're just building some supply depots peacefully, rallying here. So in these sort of base trade scenarios, it's very important not to send units mindlessly at your opponent. It's good to rally them at a point which is well defended, like this bunker with the mine. So I'm just rallying all my units. Unfortunately, I have been supply blocked because all my supply depots are being picked off by my opponent. He's doing a good job with the siege tanks, doing the best he can, but his army just isn't as strong as mine. I'm going to be clearing out his base. And yeah, that's going to be pretty much the end of the game. Because I have loads of money. I'm just making as much as I possibly can, just in case that it doesn't end well, all this stuff. That's because I lost a lot of my production from this drop here. That's why I have so much money. It's not because I've been macroing really badly. And that's going to be the end of the game. And one more thing to note, which is unrelated to the build. In these sort of base trade scenarios, you want to be sending SCVs over here and like here in the corners of the maps to build expansions so that you don't get revealed and die. But yeah, and now I'll link that to the opening, because that was fairly long game. 18 minutes is sort of slightly above average, I'd say. So the opening build, the Hellions, the Reaper, the mine. The mine didn't do its job of containing, but it did pay for itself in forcing a scan and killing an SCV here and there. That opening pressure did allow us to get that expansion up really safely without worrying about all sorts of pressure from opponent. Which means if we're not worrying if we're not worrying about all this sort of pressure, we can play a bit more greedy. We can get a tech lab factory. We got several barracks. We got 3. We got a tech lab reactor on those barracks. We got starport quite early. We got an engineering bay. We got turrets up once this had settled in. So we were playing really greedy. We were making SCVs constantly, and we were still fairly safe from all that sort of aggression because we made a mines defensively. We made a bunker. We made as just enough units to deal with what we saw out of our opponent, which is another one of the main benefits of doing these sort of pushes. We can see exactly what our opponents have and make just enough units to deal with it. So, again, I really hope you enjoyed that game. I can't stress enough how much I love this build. It's below Masters, in fact. It's gonna absolutely crushes. It wins you a lot of free games. In that sort of situation where I busted in, I often just win the game. I was fairly impressed at this guy for staying alive, and in fact not being too far behind because of this expansion. That's why I showed you this game. Yeah, nothing else to say. I clapped my hands because I'm done. I'll see you later. Goodbye.